Westchester Land Trust, we work to preserve open space and restore healthy landscapes that help wildlife and fight climate change. We call this stewardship. And while this work does take place at large scales, the same concepts apply to backyards and woodlands of any size. We are all stewards of the land, and we can all make a difference. To help you get started, we're going to give you some stewardship ideas for your land by showing you how we steward our own. So our strategy was to replant. We knew that having a forest or a functioning, healthy ecosystem next to the stream was what was going to be best for the stream, for the wildlife and the trout. And as a strategy that's applicable to all properties, really of any size. And it doesn't have to be trees that we planted here. It of course could be wildflowers, sedges or grasses, herbaceous, shrubs. There's a lot of sedge that's already here, so we didn't feel the need to plant any grasses or sedges. We didn't plant wildflowers, although we could have. We do think there's a number of adapted wildflower species. Perhaps most important are deer resistant. For example, blue flag iris would do really well here, Iris versicolor. The key thing is diversity. What we ended up going with mostly, as you can see, was trees. So I can just show you what species we planted here. Maybe you can get some ideas. The big tall ones right there are river birch. A great birch is nice too, but a great birch will topple over when there's wet snow or a lot of wind. A river birch, very strong and be very popular, very good for areas around your house. Behind that, for those of you who have a little bit more space, it's about the same size as the river birch. We have a sycamore. Sycamores can grow very fast, sometimes 4, 5, or even 6 feet in a single year, and can get very big. So I wouldn't recommend putting one of those right next to a house. Right here, we actually have a basswood, a great pollinator plant. Over there, that tall one's a silver maple. Again, very similar to maybe a sycamore. You probably wouldn't want it right next to your house, but it's a tree that can grow real fast. It can be real nice if you have an open area. We have some eastern redbud, a beautiful plant that maybe only will get 15 feet tall. So that's great for near your deck or maybe some road frontage, give you some privacy. Really nice flowers in May, as well as flowering dogwood, or maybe some of the ironwoods. We have a lot of species of which we're at the very northern edge of the range. So some species that you might see growing in Maryland, or Pennsylvania, or even Jersey. This is Quercus phellos, a willow oak. But we're at the very northern edge of its range. Climate change is happening faster than our plants can migrate. So if our goal is to have a healthy forest, we want to make sure that the species that we have growing here are going to last not just 1, 5, or 10 years. We want these to last generations and be able to successfully regenerate deer willing in the future. Sweet gum as well, but we've had great success with those here, so we think that those could be a nice option for you. Add interest to your property, certainly valuable for wildlife and pollinators. It could be a real nice thing in the face of climate change. Maintenance is real key, right? If you're going to invest in planting in anything, you got to get out there at least once a month and weed around it, keep it watered, and make sure the deer aren't going to get on it.
I'm going to talk a little bit about how we worked with what we had as well in order to protect this area. Often you have plants growing already in your yard or in your woods that are really valuable. And it's not just important to bring in new plants, to bring in new native plants, but if you just protect those plants from the deer or from invasive plants like vines that are damaging them, they'll be able to thrive on their own. Right here, we had some small chokecherry bushes that were getting destroyed by deer. Even after just a few months of being caged, they're already starting to thrive. Over here to my left, this chokecherry bush didn't get in the cage, and the deer are absolutely destroying all the new growth. But in a few years, the bushes to my right are going to get big enough that they can really contribute to this habitat. Likewise, we have a large chokecherry bush up here that might be decades old. Even this large bush was threatened. There were lots of different vines that were climbing it. So I came through and I cut the vines and I pulled off another vine called Mile a Minute, which is an annual vine that we have on this site. And I was able to prevent those vines from smothering it, and because the vines are trying to take the light that's going to the bush. Here's an example of a restoration project in action. After Hurricane Sandy, a lot of really massive spruce trees fell. And because we didn't get on top of it right away, instead of having a new forest come back, all we got was invasive shrubs like multiflora rose, privet, and barberry. We're clearing this area out, and we're able to find a few gems in this pretty rough site. I found this like 8, 9, or 10 foot ironwood. We have a spice bush back there, and in this area we have yet to clear, we can see a dogwood trying to make its way through this invasive tangle. So we're going to remove all of this, we're going to clean it up and protect everything, all of the gems that are still here, and we're going to replant and try to grow a native forest back on this site. So this is something that you could do in your own yard if you have a brushy area that's out of control. Try to find those remaining native trees, protect them, and then try to plant a few plants if you can. So I hope you learned a little bit from our videos, and I'm looking forward to your questions.